You're at your old trusty boat. You call mighty sparrow. I'm in the city of Mardi Gras.
Welcome to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show on a smoky old day up here in northern Michigan. Yes, those fires over in Canada have blanketed our skies once more, but today we're actually going to be sitting down with a very good friend of mine, Brooks, who not only has a very similar mindset when it comes to customer service and sort of having a good attitude and self-motivation and all that sort of stuff that you need to be able to do a good job pretty much anywhere in our world today. He's also a bit of an enthusiast as far as hiking and climbing and all that sort of stuff, and he just recently got back from a pretty sweet adventure on the Tetons out there. Out west. So we're going to hear a little bit about that, but the mainstay of this episode is going to dive into something I used to call juicing, which essentially is a frame of mind that someone in not just the service industry, but also in any aspect of life, whether it's relationships, friendships, all that sort of stuff too, really comes into play. And it's kind of just how you go about your life in a lot of ways. And so we're going to get into some of that. I don't know. It's going to be kind of off the cuff. We're going to see. I got a presentation I got to do tonight later on. We just finished up work. We're really pushing the envelope here, but I have 3.5 weeks left of employment before we sort of kick back onto our normal schedule and start sitting down with a lot of people and getting the podcast back out twice a week. And other than that, I do want a big shout out. It's the first of the month. So the Patreon people, all you guys, all that family, holy cow, I can't tell you how much the continued support really means to me. So really appreciate it, and it's definitely going to help, and it keeps me kind of wanting to keep on trucking with this old podcast and continue it on into the future. So thank you all very much, and for anybody that might want to become a part of that family, just follow the link to the Patreon group and consider joining and become part of that support crew that I have, which I really appreciate. Other than that, obviously we still have all the shirts and all the merch available. Bunch of different ones, I think 5 or 6 now, which is pretty cool. And then link in the description for that. But if you want to follow, or if you want to get in on emailing the show, you can just go to sailingintooblivion.com and follow the podcast link and contact the show. Those go directly to me. And as I have been receiving a few inquiries and everything about different presentations and possible events that want to host an epic sort of story, whether it be the round the world trip or actually just this last fall, this presentation has really come into its own. It's exciting, it's scary, it's a little heartfelt, and I think it brings home a pretty sweet message. And the nice part is it's half like a cool sea story, and then half a really good chance to learn some lessons about crisis management and all that sort of stuff. So whether it's just an event at a yacht club or something like that, or it's actually a corporate team building sort of exercise, you can go to the webpage as well, and it gives you a little bit of information on that. But you can contact me through the website. Other than that, that's about all I got as far as the announcements go. So without further ado, here we go with Brooks. Yeah, without further ado, I think, is it rolling? Welcome, Brooks.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
To the show, man. This is great. Like I already did an intro a couple of days ago.
Oh, really?
When I thought we were gonna do it, and all I hit on was the Tetons, and then I alluded to a little bit of the juicing theme.
Well, that's good. Then we're done here.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about anything else.
I guess, I don't know. Let's just start off with the Tetons, man, because
Sure.
I mean, you've got quite a repertoire of going off into the wilderness and climbing stuff, hiking stuff, all that. Where did it all come from?
So that's a great question. I've been hiking all my life. I've been outside pretty much all my life. I pretty much started. My family has a cabin in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Yeah.
It's in a town called Sidnaw, and we used to be outside there since I was like 4 years old. We have an old like Willys Jeep, like a 65 Willys Jeep.
Jealous.
And we used to take rides in that all the time. And I credit my uncle who kind of like got me into that sphere of being outside.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've always wanted to explore just things that are outside of my boundary. Being from the Midwest, everything's kind of flat, so you like to kind of get outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I've been to at least 25 national parks now.
Holy
some for 2 weeks, sleeping in my car, sleeping in Walmarts or parking lots or like right by the mountain.
Yeah.
My wildest story is I slept in this town called Concrete, Washington. And this was when I was hiking in the North Cascades. And if you've ever been to the North Cascades, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Yeah.
Super secluded. And it was called Concrete, Washington. I was in the local watering hole, and I was asking them, and they were like, yeah, it's called concrete because, like, there's just this big concrete structure. It used to be, I was reading one of the blurbs, it used to be like a jail, and this was like the warden's room. And just like exploring those little places, just like, fills my bucket a decent amount. So I guess the Tetons, my colleague, who's now really one of my really good friends at the school I teach, he has wanted to hike the Middle Teton for a long time. His dad hiked the Grand Teton, which has some free solo climbing if you want to do that. And he was just like, you want to come with me? And I just said yes. So he planned it all. We went together, started at 5 a.m, up to the summit in like 7 hours, down at about 5.
Oh, really? What's the height on that?
It's 12,600, I think. I think it's 12,600 feet.
What's the vertical that you're actually climbing?
So that's like 6,200, I think.
Okay.
It's over 6,000 for sure. Maybe one of the hardest things I've done. But you have to go over these like all the guides. They describe them as these like it's interminable boulder fields. It's just boulder fields that just keep going on forever and forever and forever. You think you're at the saddle. Nope, you got 2 more boulder fields.
Right. And that's a lot of like scrambling. And
yeah,
stuff.
it's a lot of scrambling.
Are you rigging any lines or anything? Or
no,
you don't need it?
This trail you don't have to. When you go on the Grand, if you hike the Grand, you can either bring rope, which is the safer option to do, or you can free solo it if you want to.
Do climbers call it rope?
Yeah, I think so.
They do. It's
yeah.
not line, huh?
No, line's more of like a boating term,
yeah.
a
No,
sailing
for sure.
term.
No
yeah.
ropes on boats.
No ropes on boats.
Except for, there's the bolt rope. And then I think somebody told me there's 3 different ropes on a boat.
Yeah.
Like technically. I don't know.
I think line's cooler. That's
I think line is cooler too. Line and halyards.
Yeah, exactly.
Sheets are the one that I've never understood, but off into the weeds we go.
Yes.
Well, the boulder fields, the only thing we ever, like on the Appalachian Trail, there's 2 sections that sort of get a little sketchy like that. There's one called, you definitely have to do some of that going up Mount Katahdin in the end. But then I'm trying to recall what it's called. It's up in Maine, and it's like this 1 mile long stretch that's just, all it is bouldering. You're squeezing in between, going down below them, above them, all that stuff. It's like Mahoosic Notch or something. I can't even remember, but
that's so cool.
that stuff is sketchy, though.
Yeah.
Did you have, obviously you must have like a day pack on, right?
Yeah, just that.
So it's not too big.
Yeah. When I go hiking, I really like to pack light. So I try to, it's a fun game I play where I try to bring like the perfect amount of food, which like I would not recommend. But
yeah. Always bring more.
Exactly.
Just in
it's
case.
just like a funny game that I like to play with myself. But I had a day pack. I had hiking poles. I had enough water. We had some filtration systems to filter
What do you
stream
use
water.
for filtration?
So my buddy had this like, it's like a squeeze bottle. So you dip it in and then you like squeeze it out the filter, and then that just filters the water automatically. It's got like 1,000 filters. It's actually really, really cool.
Right.
So poles, food, water, and then I had my film camera. That's pretty much all I had. We had helmets just because when you're scrambling up this kind of this chute that goes to the summit, if you kick a rock down, you're going to want to have a helmet on.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
just super light and a pair of crampons. That's pretty much it.
Oh, okay, so crampons.
Yeah.
So is that for when it gets pretty steep and you've got to get
It's more so just
little...
it's more so just for snow.
Yeah.
It's
okay, so
just
there
for
was snow up there.
Yeah.
I'm from the Midwest.
Yeah.
we get snow in the wintertime.
Exactly.
When it's supposed to happen.
There's like it's like 2 big snowfields that we probably didn't need them, but it just makes it so much quicker.
And this was in July, right?
Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, okay. So no staying on the mountain, though. You just go up, go right back down.
No, so you can. There's a place, it's called Lupine Meadows, where you can climb up
I've
to.
heard of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like 4.5 miles up the trailhead. Maybe it's about 4. But you climb that, you camp in this beautiful meadow that has the Middle Teton and the Grand kind of in the background. Super pretty. So you can camp there, and then you can summit it in the morning.
Oh, okay. Because
yeah.
I've only ever seen them from the land like on a road or whatever. And the Tetons, I mean, they are striking.
Yeah.
They're very unique. I mean, I would put them in that same category of like Mount Hood, how
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
that standalone. I've never seen Mount Rainier, or what's the other one in Washington, like Mount Olympia or Olympic
Or like Mount St. Helens.
or Mount St. Helens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or obviously I'll tell you the weirdest one you must have seen, Devil's Tower.
Yes, I have been there.
Dude,
yes.
that thing looks funny.
Yeah, that thing's crazy.
Yeah, I've heard it looks like it's glowing if it's like a real bright full moon.
Yes, my uncle told me to go see it, and I was like, this thing looks like it sounds silly.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, this thing looks like it should be in a movie. It looks like a prop. It doesn't look
totally.
real. What movie is it used in? Is that in Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Spielberg, man. He talks about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of him talking about why he used that and like when he saw it, and he's just like, because there's those theories that's like an ancient tree stump.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know if I'm convinced on that, but that thing is it's so odd.
Yes.
So odd.
Yeah, it's what I find it so odd is just like it's got like creases on the side that like come to a point. It's like sideways mountains. I can't really explain it. And the fact that it's in just like a flat area and then it just comes out of the ground.
Yeah. And what was that? I mean, the explanation I think is that it's like a volcanic fissure that it's like the inside of a volcano and the rest of the outside peeled away.
Yes.
And so it's just that little inner core that's just still there for whatever reason. I don't know. There's some pretty amazing sights to behold out there.
I've been to Rainier before, and that was the first mountain that, other than the Tetons, I was like, that looks like it's out of a movie.
Yeah,
it's just very,
yeah.
very strange that it's
Did
just
you
right
climb that one?
No, that's
been up
like that's a whole different beast.
Yeah, my buddy Colin, I've had him on the show. Shout out Colin. And he
Shout out Colin.
and his father, they went and what?
Just
Shout out Colin.
shout out Colin.
Concurring. Nice. Thank you, bro. He and his dad did. I think it was 3 days
Yeah. Okay.
up and back. But that one, and I think they did it in the wintertime.
Yeah, my buddy who I did the Middle Teton with, shout out Dom. He
Shout out Dom.
wants to do it because a lot of like I wouldn't call them extreme, but they can do you can do Rainier in a day if you're
really?
up at like 3 in the morning.
And that's 15 something. Isn't
Yeah, it's at least 15. I know that
it?
for sure.
Yeah.
But I've hiked around there. I've done the trail. I think it's called like Sourdough Pass or something, where it's the closest trail you get to like the base without going to go and hike it.
Okay. Yeah,
it's really cool.
Oh. Dude, they're like, I haven't climbed much mountain. All right, I'm not gonna lie. I'm more of sea level kind of guy. But when we did Katahdin at the end of that trail, you get up there and it's that Katahdin's just maybe 5,300 something. But it's, you're climbing almost all of that because you're not very high to begin with.
Right.
But you get up there and the view and the trail that continues on to the north is called Knife's Edge. So you get up there and there's like the last mile is sort of like this plateau. And then you get up to the very peak and literally like the mountain just squeezes together like a knife's edge and it just blades its way down.
That's so
And
cool.
the whole trail, we didn't get to do the trail. My dad and I went up there, and so we had to come back down. But it's like skinny, like you're like on this teeny little ridge, and it just looks daunting. It looks scary, but it's absolutely beautiful, man.
That's awesome.
Those views I think they're well worth the climb. I mean, I like the act of going up those hills too, like the anguish and the defeat, and then the just charging for it. You know?
Absolutely. My same buddy Dom, he said this phrase. He was like, as we were going up the mountain, he said to me, "Oh, this is type 2 fun." And apparently there's this fun scale where it's
Yeah.
like type 1 fun is like, oh, it's a little exhausting, but the view is great. Type 2 fun is like the view, or like we're hiking and it's really tiring, but the view is great. Type 3 fun is like, this sucks.
But it's gonna
I'm
be
hiking
worth
5
it.
miles up a mountain. I'm not seeing anything. I got so much more hard stuff to go. So, and that phrase was thrown around in Jackson a bunch. People are like, "Oh, this is type 2 fun."
Type
Like,
2.
that's silly.
We always talk about adventuring as there's adventures that are fun while you're doing them, and there's adventures that are fun when you're done.
Right,
And
absolutely.
I don't know. I feel like in my life, I lean towards the second one a lot more. I don't know why, and you might be able to shed some light on this, because anybody that spends a lot of time out in nature has to deal with a lot of discomfort. I mean, outside of like glamping and stuff like that, which is fun and it's fine. When you put yourself way out there and you're on like a minimalist sort of gear selection and all that sort of stuff, there's so many times where you're just uncomfortable. It's not what you would think that we would just always want to seek out, but for whatever reason we do. And then I feel like the rewards really do. The rewards are like enhanced because of that discomfort that you have to go through.
Yeah, my strength and conditioning coach in college, he had this phrase where he would say, "Okay, boys, it's time to embrace the suck." When we'd be doing conditioning, and that kind of phrasing really sticks with me in terms of hiking. Just understanding that you do the hard stuff to get the payout. Not everyone in the world can do the hard stuff to get to the scenic view at the end. I was actually, the buddy I was road tripping with, we were driving around Yellowstone, and we were feeling like our buckets weren't that full because you can just drive to all of the cool things. And we were like, wouldn't it be cool to hike 5 miles and then you appear upon Yellowstone Falls like you were in like the 1700s or 1800s when they found it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something gratifying about taking the time and burning the calories to really get there, because otherwise it's not as fulfilling. I think it's also not fulfilling that kind of everyone can do something, or like everyone can be in the same area at one time. That's why a lot of these trails they've started to have lottery systems for, like specifically Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. It's this beautiful trail, but it kind of goes up this traverse. It's really skinny. It's got these chains, and that used to be open to the public for everyone, and now they have a lottery system where you have to get a permit in order to hike it, just because there's so many people there.
Oh, right.
And it's not in terms of ruining it for everyone else. It's just, one, it's obviously a safety factor, but it's more so just I'm under the belief that isolation and hard work equals something beautiful. It's very, very pretty how that operates. It's very gratifying to hike 8 miles and then sit down and you're there and you get to sleep there and then you get to pick up and go. On paper, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense at all.
Well, it begs the question of like, well, why? I mean, if you have to go through all that to get to that final spot, but you had the option of just getting to the final spot, I mean, in my brain, it makes sense. But I'm always curious to find out why other people think the same sort of way about, having to go through that stuff makes the payout better.
Yeah, I empathize with that completely. When I'm looking on all trails at trails, I'm always looking at the hard categorizations, or like the 8 to 10 mile ones.
Mm-hmm.
If I see something that's 0.2, even though it's great, I don't feel as satisfied when I get there, even though the payoff in theory could be the same.
Yeah.
It's like I hiked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon with my dad. We did
which trail?
South Kaibab to Bright Angel, so South Rim to South Rim inherently, but we went down and up in the same day.
Yeah.
And when you get to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, it doesn't look like anything spectacular. You see the Colorado River, but you can't see all the way up until you get to that kind of second and third level.
You're just in a valley.
But something about being down there saying to people, oh, hey, I touched the Colorado River at the bottom of the Grand Canyon is, for me, very, very gratifying. Not just in terms of like a prideful sense, but just thinking about every single person that has done that before me and how it's gotten kind of progressively easier. Like, I've always wanted to pick the brain of someone who went down and up, and they didn't have a trail. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't feel like they had adequate supplies. But just to kind of see the first person. I've always wanted to interview or talk to the first person to be at these views, and just what that means to be the first person there and to see these things. One of the photographers that I really like is Ansel Adams, and just he's a very famous national park photographer. He was employed by I forget which administration to take pictures of all the national parks, and just seeing these views that he has that probably not a lot of people had, but he was paid to go and see these places, really like warms my belly that just like people hold these places so close to our hearts that we're able to appreciate them. And I don't know how much more we have left just in getting in more of an environmental philosophical route.
Right.
But just trying to appreciate it while it's here.
Yeah.
And understanding that these places may look totally different in 20 years, and trying to get to see as many of these places as we can to build that kind of Rolodex of not just I've seen these places and you haven't, but just to kind of reflect on them over the years.
Yeah. Well, and not taken for granted at all. I mean, they say the Great Smoky Mountains, I think, is probably one of the busiest of all the national parks. Yet, I think most people that go there barely make it over a few hundred yards.
Right.
Like on any of the trails, or maybe they go up to Klingman's Dome or something like that. But I remember reading in Bill Bryson's book, Walk in the Woods. Shout out Bill Bryson.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Bill.
He talks about Gatlinburg, which is like the tourist trap town.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's far more popular than the actual park. And it's like, yeah, and then you got Dolly World and stuff like that. Not saying those places are bad or anything, but yeah, taking account of just how beautiful Mother Nature has provided us with these spots. And I think America definitely has more than its fair share.
Absolutely.
Of absolutely majestic, wonderful. And I think it's kind of crazy to note that, most of this stuff's only about 10,000 years old.
Right.
This lake that we're on
young.
wasn't here not that long ago.
Right.
And I think the first glacial pond is Sunfish Pond down in, I think it's when you cross over into New Jersey from Delaware on the AT. So that's how far south it really, the ice cap went or whatever it is. And so you kind of, that was always a weird spot because you pass that and all of a sudden you're sort of like, holy cow, all the landscapes here have been marred by 2-mile thick ice sheet coming down. You know? And so you're thinking, wow, this is all like virgin new stuff. Even though we've, when I think about Michigan, it's always kind of crazy because they've clear cut this state, I don't know, twice.
Really?
Back in the day, to build the cities, back, Vanderbilt and all them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the towns around here were spawned just as like little logging towns. And then they grew, and then they cut all the trees down, and then they kind of left. But some of them just clung on and everything. And there was East Jordan was always pretty interesting because they had East Jordan Iron Works right downtown.
Oh, yeah.
It was this grisly-looking old black factory with old like smokestack. Now they finally upgraded and broke it all apart and stuff. But it was always just, I don't know, there was something, I don't want to say pretty, but there was something that's always enticed me about seeing evidence of like the industrial age where, it was just like, let's burn stuff to melt stuff to make stuff.
Yeah.
And on such a scale that you're like, whoa.
Yeah, that's funny. I visited my sister in Duluth, Minnesota, and they have these big like copper tankers that are coming through.
Yeah.
And these ships are gigantic, and they are as old school as when they were built 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And like so much that inherently it's just a big boat, but the fact that it's still carrying these resources that have been carried for the last 100 years.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it's awesome.
Obviously, like the Panama Canal and stuff are huge, and the world is traveling through there, but pretty sure the Soo locks up there are the busiest locks in the world. I know it used to be not that long ago, if it not still is. There's just a huge amount of stuff coming. That whole Lake Superior area is just like, there's just constant flow. It's absolutely nuts. I've always wanted to go up and see them. I've never seen them before. But you get those 1,000-footers that just rip through there and right out into the St. Lawrence, or not St. Lawrence. So what does that connect? Lake Superior to Lake Huron?
Yeah, Lake Huron.
Yeah. And then they go all the way down.
Yeah.
Well, but it makes sense, though. You got Canada, you got all the western states, all that stuff. I'm sure there's tons of railroads and everything going right to it. Just
right.
And Duluth was, that's right in the corner, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right in the corner. It's like on the border of Minnesota. And is it the UP? Is it Wisconsin?
It's
My
like
sister's
a
gonna kill me.
tri-state area
Yeah.
up there. It's and dude, it's so. Have you ever been to Boundary Waters up there?
No, I've always wanted to go.
It's glorious.
I've always wanted to go.
Glorious. It's ridden with ticks.
Yes.
I mean, it's awful. We got up there one year and we must have been there during the hatch. I mean, they were just the dog ticks or the little burgundy colored ones.
Oh yeah.
I think some people call them wood ticks.
Yeah.
I mean, 3-4 of them every day. You got them on you, like to the point where you stopped like plucking them off. You're like, all right, way to go. You can have me
Yeah.
for a little bit because they just drop off of you. But
Right.
there's, I don't know, that was that, and they always had, since they had that big fire 10, 15 years ago, they always are so quick to cancel fires for camping. That burns my britches.
Right.
Man.
Closest thing I've been to there was I've been to Royale.
Oh, you have?
And the story of getting there is maybe a whole. I'll tell a little bit briefly, but we were on the Queen 4. This
Sounds hardy.
it was hardy, and then we
What time of year did you go?
it was in the summertime, kind
Okay.
of late summer. But we're in Copper Harbor. We get on the boat. It's like 5 a.m. Captain comes on the boat. Big storm happening right now.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. This is your captain speaking. This is the worst storm I've encountered in the 35 years I've been a captain of this boat. Here we go.
Whoa.
So we set out, and this boat is just tipping back and forth so much that my cousin falls asleep, and when they're asleep, are sliding back and forth as the boat goes.
Oh, wow.
My family's throwing up. It
Yeah.
was horrible. But we get there, we get off the boat.
How long did it take? 6 hours?
Yeah, it was like 6.5 hours. I think it normally takes around 4. It was 6.5 hours. Yeah, I think we pulled up to Royale, and it just cleared up. We were like, okay, that's fitting. But at Royale, the black flies
Were they really
they
bad?
are so bad. They're bad from kind of, I think it's like a mid-July to like the end of August. They're so bad. You have to like just wear a face net
You have to
the
have the
entire
net.
time.
Yeah. You know, and I'll tell you, when we talked earlier about like going through misery and discomfort, like I can go through sleeping in a mud puddle, not getting any sleep, being accosted by porcupines, skunks, whatever. But man, the bugs.
The bugs. No,
The bugs,
I
bugs,
totally get you.
They're like
I
across
totally understand
that line, just barely. But man, like up where we go in Sylvania Wilderness, so that's up right on the border of little town's called Watersmeet.
Okay.
Home of the Nimrods. That's their high school mascot. And it's about 6 hours. It sounds like it's probably just a bit past where your guys' cottage is. But sometimes the mosquitoes are just, absolutely horrendous. Just all over you.
Yeah.
You're like hiding in your tent and stuff. Have you ever used those Thermacell things?
No, I haven't.
They're not that bad.
Really?
They actually.
How do you use them?
All it is, a little container thing, and it burns basically some sort of butane or whatever, and it's emitting some sort of chemical that's keeping them away. On those trips, we got to the point where we would take like 1 or 2 of them up, and just when you're sitting around the campfire or whatever, you'd throw those out. And I wouldn't say it got rid of all of them, but it would go from having 7 or 20 around you at all times, just trying to land, to being like maybe 1.
Yeah.
Which was astounding for us, because dude, I don't mind wearing the whole face net stuff, but it's not ideal. And even then, when you're wearing it, they're still buzzing around your ears and everything.
I was having a conversation with someone about if you could eliminate one sound from the world, what would it be? Mine is a mosquito buzzing by your ear.
When you're trying to like sleep, just about to get, and then there's like one in
Yeah.
your tent. Oh God!
Yeah.
Of course. Give me spiders.
Yeah,
all
seriously.
day long. All
Absolutely.
day long. Oh man. Well, I can remember one trip where I don't know how many of us, but we had 3 different tents, and I was in my own little. I didn't use a tent. I was using a tarp. I thought that was even cooler because it was a little more ultra light.
Sure.
And I set it up in this one spot, and it looked good, but it was a divot. And man, when it started raining that night, like it woke me up, and I'm kind of looking around, and then I was able to get back to sleep, but then I woke up with the saturation feeling because I'm just on a sleeping pad on the ground, but basically I was in a puddle now.
Right.
And it's you look at your watch and you're like, whoa, It's 11:30 at night, and it's just driving rain, and you're just sitting there, and there's nothing you could do.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure I did not sleep another second until I think the sun came up probably around like 5:30. And those moments, like I look back on that as a great memory.
Mm.
It was not great at the time, but there was a point where like the rest of the guys, they were like, dude, stop laughing. I'm trying to sleep. And I was just, I don't know. It was so, everything had gone so wrong that it just sparked this almost uncontrollable laughing fit. Where I'm just like, this is comically bad.
Yeah, right.
And what I wonder and what I ponder sometimes is how come we can't just turn that switch on and off? You know, whenever we encounter some sort of bad situation or some situation that's not fun, being able to, you would think it'd be easy to just choose, like to take it from the fish video, choose your attitude and sort of be like, you know, this could be really funny later on in life, so let's just enjoy it. I mean, it's not that easy, though.
Yeah, I would say a bad situation, when you encounter a bad situation outside, it's very easier to deal with it than it is like a bad situation inside. I can understand it just from just being a high school teacher, just talking to parents, and if something just kind of blows up in your face, a lesson.
Yeah,
it's very hard to deal with it in that moment because then now I have to sit with my thoughts about how this impacts everybody else that I've ever interacted with in that kind of microcosm of a setting.
Yeah.
When I'm outside and I'm dealing with something bad, either kind of the situation that you described, or we took a wrong turn on a trail, we're 3 miles in the other direction. I don't know. That kind of brings a smile to my face just because that's it. It's not deeper than anything. It's just this is what it is.
Ooh,
the situation is in front of us.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do. There's nothing to think about other than either getting through the next 6 hours of not being able to sleep, or we're just going to walk the 3 miles back that we just did over whatever terrain we just did. I think taking the thinking out of it and really putting being outside does that to you. It takes all of the I wouldn't say mental stress, but just those factors of anything in society that you have to deal with. It just takes it away. So once you take away all those layers, I only have to deal with one layer, even though it sucks, it's way easier to deal with than everything else.
You can almost take it on as just like, oh, this is an additive to this adventure. This is just one extra challenge that I'm going to overcome. It's not like, you know, the raccoons out here are going to be judging me and they're not going to want to hang out with me later.
Right.
You know, you're pretty much, it is cut and dry. That's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Right. Yeah, I can remember going up, what was that? This might have been the Narrows in Zion. And I had hiking poles, and at the same time, both my hiking poles snapped. And I'm like, okay, I'm 4 miles down this river. I'm climbing over these boulder-like rocks. They're slippery. Everyone next to me has like the tourist trap of a big walking stick. They got these ankle boots. And I'm like, all right, well, better start walking. I mean, nothing else is going to happen if I don't start walking. So, I also have that with, excuse me,
it's a Busch Light, man.
Exactly.
It does it.
It's so good. My sponsor this podcast, please.
Oh,
Busch, Anheuser-Busch.
Oh, man.
That same uncle that I talked about in the beginning, my cousin and my dad, there's these two waterfalls that connect around my cottage in the UP. One is Bond Falls and one is Canyon Falls. Or no, Agate Falls, sorry. Bond Falls and Agate Falls. And they're connected by the Sturgeon River.
Oh, okay.
So
nice.
we were like, let's go hike the Sturgeon River. Let's go hike from Bond Falls, at the bottom of Bond Falls to the top of Agate, because they flow into each other, Bond Falls and Agate Falls. The most miserable 6 hours of my life. Like, absolutely miserable. We're in waist deep water. These rocks are like bowling balls, so they're big. I'm stubbing my toe like crazy. All of us are falling over. I've never heard my dad swear as many times in that kind of span of 6 hours. It was just miserable.
Yeah.
But we get to the end, and we get to Agate Falls, and we are giggling like little schoolgirls because we were just thinking to ourselves, that was so dumb. We inherently wasted 6 hours to see two things that we've already seen before, and we just hiked in this river. We didn't do anything special. everyone, I would honestly, looking at it objectively, I'd call it dumb. But just the fact that we were able to do it, and in the company of people that we love and care about, I think just added so much more of okay, we can look back on this and we all can understand the frustration, anger, and then immortal bliss we had when we reached the end of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something to be said for that too. Of as you're taking on these challenges, there is a decisive and plain in sight goal is like to get to that end spot. So even for my trip, like around the world, it's to get back here. That's the goal. And so I don't know. I feel like that's part of why even when adversity gets thrown at you and it's not fun, it's sort of, I don't know, it's just adding on to what you have to go through to get there. And I think you definitely understand, and I know I do, that the more you have to go through, the more rewarding it's going to be at that end.
Absolutely.
That spot is just it's going to be a little sweeter to just take a seat afterwards. Right. And I don't know, I mean, I definitely had to mentally project myself to the end of my voyage. When I was in the Pacific, you get about 2/3 of the way across, and then that's when you start to make your trip down to Cape Horn. And so you're in the Southern Ocean. You're in a place called the Roaring Forties. It's a pretty ugly spot. But then you get down to below 50 degrees south to get down to Cape Horn, and that's the Furious 50s. It's really dangerous. It's cold, it snows, all that sort of stuff. And, north of you is the Marquesas, and then, the Tuamotus, Tahiti, all that sort of stuff, 2 weeks away. Or you can keep going on this challenge and head further into the belly of the beast, so to speak. And I can remember, you're out there for days and months actually, and you're just by yourself, and the choice is yours the whole time to be like, well, I could just go north and then maybe go through the Panama Canal or maybe stop at these islands. But the one thing that really helped me was projecting myself to the end of the trip, pulling into Gloucester and sort of being like, how do I feel? And I played it out in my head of like all the wants that I would have loved to have, like, stop in one of these fancy, crazy islands and then go through the canal, and how cool that would be. And then you come up and all this stuff, and you still have sailed around the world, but you didn't do what you set out to do. And how I would feel. And I knew for a fact that I would have always questioned if I did the right thing, made the right choice, or, what it would have been like to actually go all the way down to Cape Horn, that sort of thing. And that was, in the end, when I really thought it through, I have to keep trying. Right. I have to go further. I have to take that last ugly dip down south before I can finish this thing.
Yeah, my dad would always tell me that your character is defined by what you do and no one else is looking. And
that's a good one.
Just understanding that, and I totally empathize with that. No one's gonna, like, I can still say that I did these things. No one's gonna know except for me. And the fact that for me, no one's gonna know except for me makes me want to do all the other harder stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not for the sake of telling people. It's just for the sake of me, of wanting to have that fulfillment when I get to the final destination. I know that the phrasing is like cheating yourself, right? In terms, but you're cheating yourself of the pleasure of doing the thing that gets you to the final thing. And if you don't, you have to live with that, as trivial as it may be. But then those things add up over time. And it's all about kind of sticking to your guns and setting out doing what you wanted to do.
Well, and I think that's a big part of what makes character too, is, when you are, I don't want to lose how I'm trying to say this, but essentially when you start going down a road and you take the easy way, that becomes the character that you are. You're the guy that takes the easy way.
Right.
And you're going to take it and you're going to continue. And, if you're the type of person who's like, you know what, no, I'm going to do exactly what I said I was going to do. I'm going to stick it out. It's not fun, but I'm going to do it. And you continue on with that. That again is your character right there.
Right.
And I definitely agree with that. Robin Knox Johnson, the first person to make it around the world back in 1968 and 69, he was out for like 312 days or something on a boat very similar to mine, except his was made out of teak. And one of the things that he kept saying in his book when he would get super down was that, you know, he didn't want to let down the me that got him there.
Oh,
if
wow.
that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Where, so it's, you know, you're sitting there, and that was like a mantra for me in the Indian Ocean when like the water maker exploded and stuff, and I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, well, I've gotten this far, and, you know, I'm that person, but I'm not technically, that person is in the past, and he did all this stuff to get me here, and if I quit now, then, you know, I'm just letting that guy down. And, you know, obviously you're just letting yourself down, but like, it's an interesting perspective. It's an interesting sort of way to look at it where almost anything could be applied to that.
Yeah.
I think. Like, you know, even working here, you know, you have a couple rough days or you're really tired or it's the end of the season and you're like, ugh. And, you know, you think you're like, well, yeah, but I mean, for the last 10 weeks, I've been charging pretty hard.
Right.
Only a couple weeks left. Stick it out and we can do this.
Exactly.
You know? And you know, not just here, but any job, I suppose.
Yeah, I had never thought about that way, and just in terms of hiking or doing anything, right? Do I want to let down the person who 4 hours ago was really jazzed about getting on the trail at 6 in the morning, right? Would this person be happy with me if I felt like I didn't want to do it when I got 2,000 feet up the hill? I'm done. See you later. So yeah, I'm gonna steal that.
Steal away, sir.
Yeah.
Steal away. No, I don't know. I've always been curious about what motivates people to do things that are hard. I mean, essentially, it's bare bones. That's it. And you know, you can say, yeah, the rewards are good, but then there's also that whole thing. You know, it's about the journey, that cliche, and if that's the case, then if it's about the journey, well, then the journey should just be all good all the time, right? I mean, you could lawyer it up like that. I don't know. It's an interesting subject because there's people in this world that literally their entire life is just a challenge,
right?
And one that they've created themselves because they choose to take on these challenges, these adventures, things like that. I guess you could also say there's people that don't choose to do it, and then their life is changed. You know, you get somebody, you come down with like MS or something like that, and now your life's not going to be easy. And are you going to get out of bed? Are you going to do stuff? Are you going to move forward, or are you just going to be like, well, I guess it's Netflix for the next 40 years?
Yeah, and I always think about Alex Honnold. There's this interview with him, and people are asking him, "Why are you doing what you're doing?" And he simply just says, "I don't know. I'm just doing it." He's
really deadpan honest.
I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
And that I think is the emotion that I kind of revel in. Is I can't explain the cosmos of why I want to do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm completely okay with that. I'm okay with kind of sitting in the under the stars of the unknown and saying to myself, this is something I like to do, and that's the only reason that I need. And I don't think that people have to have this crazy backstory or maybe necessarily trauma or this like huge goal setting to try to do it. It's just something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And if it's gonna fill my bucket at the end of the day, then that's the only reasoning that you need. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you want to do it, that's the only reason that you need.
Right.
So I always revel in the fact that someone as like quote unquote cool as him can just simply say to someone, I don't know why I'm doing this. And then everyone just goes, okay, well, that's fine. And then they just kind of move on.
Yeah.
And obviously he's doing feats that, I mean, you and I couldn't even dream of.
Makes my palms sweat just thinking
seriously.
about it.
But
insane.
But
so dangerous.
Yeah, but I think that anyone can have that perspective. You don't have to have the grandiose backstory to.
Well, it's all relative too.
Exactly.
You know, for him, I don't know. I'd be interesting to sit down with him at some point and be like, so when you say you go sail out to Bermuda, across an ocean, something like that, and who knows, he might be like, what?
Exactly.
No way, dude. That's dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is. I've watched a few of his interviews. There was one too that was pretty funny where he was like, this guy asked me like, why I climb without ropes, and I just told him that's the stupidest question I've ever heard. I'm just like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I get asked that quite a bit, the why. And I, rather than just be up there and say, I don't know, I've had to put like a lot of thought into it, because not only for my own self, because I am kind of curious, but just to be able to answer that question, because I know it's always coming,
Right.
always during those presentations and stuff. But I think the answer is the answer, where it's sort of like, I was always curious about this stuff. When I read Bill Bryson's book about the Appalachian Trail, I was curious to know what that was like in real life, because it sounded really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounded like it was hard. It sounded like a real big challenge, but I was curious, like, what would it be like to do that? And what am I going to react to? Like, is my body going to be able to do that? Is my mind going to be able to do that? How is it going to change me? I have all these questions, and it was the same for all the sailing trips that I do, where it's like, I want to see what's going to happen to me if I try that.
Right.
I have this curiosity, and that's the closest thing to an actual answer I've ever had for that question. Because you could say, I mean, I'm sure there's some people, if they want to be like blatantly, honest, would be like, well, I'm doing it, for fame and glory or this or that. And that's fine, because everybody's got their own reasons for sure. But yeah, I kind of like your explanation better. Where it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Know.
I don't know.
There's a really interesting book about the first race around the world on sailboats called A Voyage for Madmen by Peter Nichols, and really great. It delves into all these 9 sailors that go and try and do it. Short synopsis: 9 sailors set off in 1968. Only one of them makes it back and wins the race. One of them sort of kind of loses it a little and continues sailing around the planet another lap almost. One person dies. People's boats sink. People give up. After the fact, people had killed themselves, and it was pretty. It was daunting. And for a while, like, nobody even attempted it. They were just like, "Look, we shouldn't do that anymore. That was bad. The results aren't great." But one of the things that they talk about in that book is something and I don't know if it's he, the author, that describes it or has tagged it or whatever you want to call it, but he calls it the Ulysses factor. And he says that certain people have this like gene almost where they are just motivated to go out and do these things, usually by themselves, and experience this adventure, the suffering, the glory, whatever you want to call it, and then bring that back and share that with the world. And then after a bit of time, they end up having to go back out, and it's almost like a sickness.
Yeah.
And it's something that that resonated with me when I read that book. I was like, oh, I feel that.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
I think I'm coming down with a little.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I have never heard that before, but that's me to a T. I did a 2-week trip by myself, car camping. I did a national park tour of Utah.
Oh,
and
nice.
Then when I got back, back in my house, showered, all the pampering, ready to go.
Yeah.
The next day, I was like, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
Now where am I gonna go? It is like a sickness, and for me, that's why I don't like to spend the summers that I have off. I don't like to spend them in my apartment, because it just feels like I'm wasting valuable time.
Yeah.
In the last month, maybe a little more than a month, I think I've been in my apartment for like 72 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Way to go.
And it's not that I get like anxious. It's that I just feel like I have to do something. I cannot sit in my apartment, even though my apartment has great amenities. I can't sit there.
It's little soaps.
Exactly. I can't sit there knowing that there's so many other things I could be doing right now, and so many things that I want to be doing right now. So because during school I'm kind of landlocked, so I really take that time to kind of not like get all out, but like I mean, maybe it is get it all out. Just get all that energy out that has been cooped up for the 9 months that I'm teaching.
Yeah.
And that like nervous, anxious energy doesn't come from my job. It just comes from the fact that I know that I have like a certain amount of time that I can do these things in. And
well, I was just going to ask you, do you ever ponder that? Because I think a lot about I've always said that, the only thing that people actually own and have is time. We've got our time. We don't know how much of it we have. Nobody does. But it's our most valuable asset by far. You can't buy any more of it. And you can give it away.
Yeah.
You're giving me your time right now, and I thank you for that, sir. But it's when you put it into what you're talking about, do you ever wonder, like, I know I do, but do you ever think about like, wow, well, what am I going to be able to fit into the rest of my summers?
I think about that all the time.
Really?
All
do you
the
have
time.
a checklist at all?
It's not necessarily a checklist. It's just when I sign up, like my girlfriend talks about this. Shout out Sarah. She says she says you have to book me a week. Where you're here, like you have to book me a week.
Yeah.
In the summertime, and I always say to the people I interact with, my friends or family, that I blink and it's August, and it's August right now.
Right.
I think about the summers as like a ticking clock until I get to the first day of school, and I try to fill that time with as much as I can.
Yeah.
Just because I know that when I get to the school year, it's all hands on deck. Like, this is my sole focus.
That is it, yeah.
This is my purpose in the world. This is what I live for and what I do. This is why I'm here. So I devote my full energy to it.
Yeah.
When I don't have to do that, I get to kind of explore the other reaches of my curiosities and my endeavors. So I think about it as like when the first day of summer hits, it's like, okay, I have however many hours to do every single thing that I want to do that I've kind of thought of.
Yeah. How many days do you have in the summer then?
So it's like a little under 3 months. I always like to think of it as like 70 days.
70 days.
It's like 70 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Steve Callahan was in a life raft for 72 days out
Whoa.
in the Atlantic. Think of it as you're on Callahan time.
I'm on Callahan time. I'm taking that too.
It's cool. I'm on Callahan time. He was in a life raft. Yeah, he hit something. This is back in the 80s. American Solar Sailor. He built his own boat, and he was coming back from like Spain or something like that. He was going to go to the Caribbean. He hit something like 3-4 days out, and ended up in his life raft that night. And back then, we didn't have EPIRBs and all sorts of stuff. And essentially, he just sat out there, and he drifted all the way across and was found by fishermen off of Guadalupe in the Caribbean.
Oh, my God.
72 days later. He had lived off of fish and eyeballs, and I think he caught some birds, but I'm not sure. His story is pretty insane. It's called Adrift.
Okay.
Oof. It's frightening. It's like you have to, if you're going to be a solo sailor, you've read that story a million times. I mean, these days it would be very hard, I think, to be stuck on the ocean for that long. Although there's that Australian guy who just got picked up off of, I think he was out there for like a month or something with his dog.
Oh my God! Really?
I saw some blurb. People keep talking to me about it. Like they're like, dude, what do you think about that guy? I was like, I only saw a 30-second clip. I didn't dive into it, but being a solo sailor, everybody's like, did you see that sailor, buddy? Did you know him?
Yeah, that's funny.
No, I did not know that guy. I don't know. It's just it's amazing, man. That's pretty cool that you just go full till and just burn your summer right through and through as best you can.
Yeah, and some teachers, they like to think about it as like they rest. They don't go anywhere. They maybe go on like a week vacation off and on, but I think I would feel worse about myself if I didn't jettison out to all the places that I wanted to go, even if it's coming back here for 2 weeks out of the summer.
Yeah.
Doing something that I don't usually get to do in the 9 months out of the year where I'm fully dedicated to the craft that I'm doing makes me recharged and ready to go for the next school year, even though I may be more physically tired.
Physically exhausted.
Mentally, I'm sharp.
Well, and that rings true in a lot of ways, even like on a micro scale of, we're working like 6 days a week here, 3-4 nights a week as well. And, Saturday comes and it's sort of like, man, I want to lie in bed. I want to watch, go and take naps and just, whew.
Right.
And then the end of that day comes and you don't feel fulfilled at all.
Exactly.
You really haven't done a whole lot. And you think, you might be a little physically rested, I suppose. But mentally, you're just like, wow, I blew it.
Exactly.
Blew it.
No, I totally feel that way.
And when
Absolutely.
you get out and about and you're just like, you know what, let's just hard charge. I mean, it's easier towards the end of a season because you're like, whoa, we've only got like 3 weeks left. But in the beginning of the season, you're like, we got all summer.
Right.
Got all summer.
Yeah.
Those are the words that just get you like, I'll do it next year.
Exactly.
I always, it always rings chills down my spine when I hear people say that. Like, we're gonna just do that someday. It's like, ooh, the devil's words. The devil's words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like we just go on and on, man, about like camping. Camping for me, like I definitely like obviously taking on challenges, right? But I love like this place we're going to in a couple weeks here is literally, you pop the canoe in, you're fishing. The camp spots are just beautiful. They're pretty close to the water. It's just, I don't know, it's majestic. There's loons flying around. It's not arduous though. Like the portages might be, 100, 200 feet. And on the map, they're called rods.
Oh.
Yeah, they use the rod scale.
That's
so like
awesome.
33 rod, we can handle that.
Yeah.
There's one that's like 140 rod, which I think is over a mile, which is insane. But that will be so restful, both physically and mentally. But also, I cherish the memories of going up there, with these people or even by myself. There's something about just diving into the woodland realm. And we're lucky that there aren't cougars and grizzlies and things like that want to eat us all the time. If there's one thing for all the varmint campaigns back in the day was that they did make it a lot safer to just go out in the woods and start sleep in a tent.
Yeah.
Have you ever read Stephen Herrero's Bear Attacks
No,
or
I
Causes
haven't.
and Avoidance? Oh, it's wow. Most of it though takes place back in the 60s and 70s when they had the bear dumps at all the places.
Oh,
so bears
okay.
were eating human food, and they
Exactly.
were like, wow, next level. Where do
Yeah.
I get more?
Yeah, exactly.
And but some of the stories are just, I always take a copy with me and we read it out loud. Because there's one where these 3 boys and they're out camping. I think it's in Yellowstone. And, 2 a.m, one of them gets ripped out of the tent, gone, mauled. He's dead. The other 2, boom, they scurry up trees. And this bear, over the next 30 minutes, just proceeds to slowly crawl up, grab one by the foot, pull it down, eat it, and then go grab the other one. And it's not just like a mauling and then leave, like literally wolfing down some meat.
Jeez.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. And I do think that's one of the nice parts. That's why I think of this place that we're going as sort of like a sanctuary, because I don't even think there are even bears up there anymore. We still hang our food out of tradition.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
You go to Boundary Waters, you get moose, you get all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But I don't know. I know it's kind of like a little side thing, but the woods these days, they're just so nice. They're so pleasant, and if I don't get my little woodland, time each year or two, I feel it. I start to itch.
No, seriously.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't feel right. But having said that, just talking to you for this little bit about some of the adventures that you've been doing, that makes me want to up the game a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
It definitely does. Any of your, what would you say are some of your favorites all time?
So the hikes I did in the North Cascades in Washington were amazing. Those are like the Swiss Alps of the U.S. It's that type 2 fun where it's like, okay, I have to walk 4 miles uphill through a forest before I even get to the clearing where I can see any of the mountains.
Yeah, right.
But those trails they're not highly populated, so there's not a lot of people on them, so you kind of have the trail to yourself a lot of the time. animals everywhere. Mountain goats, black bears, marmots, bald eagles, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's probably one that I cherish the most, also because I did it by myself, kind of just driving out there, just seeing what I could find. So that's one I will always hold deep in my heart. Another one that I love is Bryce National Park. That's in southern Utah. That one's small, but that's also one that's not as populated, but there's this one loop you can do. You can see the park in about 5 hours. You can do the whole thing, which is really, really pretty.
Is that where that guy got his arm stuck? 127
hours. I'm not sure. That's in a park in Utah. I don't know if that's in the Canyonlands or.
Oh, I think it might have been.
I think it's that because the Canyonlands has a lot of slot canyon type climbing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's there for sure, but that sounds like a place that it would happen.
Side question: what would you have done? Would you have been able to cut your arm off?
I don't even know.
I know, right? You put yourself in that.
How many hours in did he cut his arm off? I've never seen the movie or
I'm
read
not
anything.
too sure. It was long in there. He was in there for days. I would think it was probably hour 120. And then it took him 7 hours to walk out of there.
Yeah, I would like to think that I could do it, but
tough.
I got no clue.
No clue. Well,
no.
Yeah.
I couldn't even think about making that decision until it actually really happened.
Yeah.
If I'm I those questions for me, it's I would like to think that I could do the thing that would keep me alive, but I need 120 hours of losing my mind before that. You got to put me in the right sphere for me to be able to do that.
Yeah, right. Oh my God. Yeah, that's one of those things. And I think it's one of the things that I like about the whole sailing thing is that you find yourself stuck in these positions where there's just no pause, there's no stop, there's no help. You have to deal with it. And I don't know if it's something I enjoy about being tested or it's that 100% commitment thing.
Sure.
But yeah, boy, being stuck in that with your arm just pinned, you will never know. No one could ever, I don't think, honestly answer that except for him.
Yeah.
Obviously he knows. Oof. That would be rough.
Yeah, it's even when people ask me, well, what would you do if you encountered a bear? I don't know. I've never encountered one that's even gotten close to me.
They usually run so fast.
Exactly. And the closest moment I could ever get to that was my family and we were hiking in the Tetons. This was a year ago. We were doing some backcountry camping. I'm at the front of our line. We're on hour 6 or 7. We're just where is the campsite? We need to get to it. All of a sudden, there's this rustling that's in these kind of grove of trees, these big plants that are next to us as we're walking on this skinny trail.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm at the front of this line. I have to defend my family. And all of a sudden, this big bull moose pops out.
Ooh,
10 feet tall, huge moose.
Yeah.
And we all just froze. And it looked at us and then it walked away. But I was talking about it with my family. I was if that was a bear, I don't even know. I don't even know what I would have done. I would have liked to think that I would have pulled out the bear spray and been ready to go. But seeing an animal that close, that big, it's something when you've never seen it before, your brain has to process, oh my God, this is actually a gigantic creature that is in front of me that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
I've seen it in pictures and videos, but I've never seen before, right? So seeing it, projecting it with your own eyes and it's 10 feet in front of you is a completely different ballgame in terms of dealing with it. Yeah, you get the training of the backcountry camping, spray the bear spray and a cloud. I have my checklist, but
you don't know until it happens.
It could take me 30 seconds to get to the checklist while my brain is processing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Absolutely, man. I remember I had a snorkel trip, only 5 or 6 guests, and we were right off of Branson's Island down in the BVI. Been there 1,000 times, taken tons of snorkel trips over, no big deal. And we have lemon sharks, and we've got little gray, reef sharks. You'll see those, maybe up to 5 feet or something. Most of the time they're just hiding under the coral, and you're whoa, look, a shark. And people are ooh, neat. I'm out there snorkeling, and I'm with them. They're over there, 50, 100 feet away, something like that. I'm kind of off on my own. And just out of the corner of my eye, like a 10-foot bull shark
Whoa.
just slowly blows by, maybe 10 feet away from me. Teeth, everything right there, like I'm in Shark Week. And I was totally frozen.
Yeah.
I just looked at it, and I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't even want it to know I was there.
Yeah.
You're so out of your element when you're in the water. I suppose even in the woods, with like a bear or a mountain lion. Well, they say, though, you never know you get attacked by a mountain lion.
Right.
Because they'll come out of nowhere.
Exactly.
And you're already dead.
Yeah.
It's like neck gone. But yeah, I don't know. It is one of those crazy thoughts that you'll never really know how you're going to react to it until it actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
As well, the presentation, I think what makes the presentation that I'm doing right now kind of interesting is I got to find that out, twofold with the boat going upside down and then struggling to get back without being able to sleep and all that stuff, for a couple of weeks. And I find that that's what people seem to be liking or enjoying about it is they're like, it's interesting to see how a human being dealt with that situation.
Sure.
And, made it through without sort of losing it and stuff. I don't know. So that stuff's been on my mind. It's been interesting to share some of these thoughts, man.
Yeah, when talking about resilience, there's this short story. I forget who it's by, but it's Most Dangerous Game. It's about how this world-renowned hunter captures prisoners and he sets them loose on the island. And he brings people in to like hunt them. So Most Dangerous Game is human beings. They're hunting for human beings. And
right.
At the end of the story, sorry, spoilers. One of the prisoners breaks free of the hunter's grasp. And then he kills the hunter. But just there's a part in there where the hunter talks about why they're doing this, and he's like, "Well, I mean, obviously they're the most dangerous because they're humans, but like they're the most resilient. They can get over anything. They have creative thinking brains that can problem solve when someone else is trying to hunt them. That these animals 200 years ago or 500 years ago, however many years, were not thinking about human beings hunting them.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that you're able to hunt something that thinks the same way you do allows you to understand how a human's brain works in terms of how resilient they are, how much they can problem solve immensely to avoid even the most world-renowned hunter's grasp.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting read. I actually read it with I used to read it with my sophomores, my honors sophomores, and we talk about kind of human resilience in that.
Oh, really?
In that regard, yeah.
Interesting. Well, it is, yeah. I mean, because as long as you don't have a quick exit that you can just, like I always refer to it as the pause button. If you don't have a pause button, then I think your brain clicks into a different mode where, you're not. People asked me if I was thinking about, if I was going to die or this or that. And there was a section, when I was in these really big waves where I was kind of like, holy cow, there wasn't really anything I could do anymore at that point. But like when the boat had been turned over and then dealing with that situation, trying to collect everything, it was just sort of like, okay, well, we got to do this, and we're going to do this first, and we're going to do that and that, and you sort of figure it out.
Right.
It wasn't like I had a checklist and I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. It was because every single situation is going to be different like that. But yeah, I mean, there definitely is. There's a fighting spirit, I think, inside of every single one of us, and all we need is a situation to bring it out. But I think unfortunately, in this day and age, a lot of people will never even find that. They'll never get to know that part because society's so based around comfort and safety, security, maybe just because you don't have to go and get yourself in those situations really anymore. It's not 1532, it's not
exactly
500 BC or whatever.
Yeah, what's that Herb Brooks quote? The U.S. hockey coach, when he says great moments are born from great opportunity.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you're not gonna know what you're made of unless your boat flips over or unless something catastrophic really happens to you, right? So
I like to start off some of my sailing lessons with quotes like that.
yeah.
Yeah. That and the some of the stuff from like that movie Independence Day.
Oh,
back in the
yeah,
day.
absolutely.
I don't know, you got to get people in the right frame of mind. When
Welcome to
they're about-
Earth.
Yeah, just about to jump in on a boat, first time ever. Let's get them psyched up.
Yeah.
Oh man, well I do. This is great. How much time are we on here? Because I know we've got a lot of stuff going on tonight.
Sure.
And I don't want to steal all your time.
No, you're good.
It's pretty dim in here. Oh yeah, we're past an hour already, man. Well, if you've got time, I'd
do.
love to talk about juicing.
Can I have another one of these?
I was just gonna offer
Yes.
you another
I
ice
would-
cold beverage.
I would love a reload.
Do you wanna maybe, as I go into the other room and grab this, maybe just talk a little bit about your teaching?
Sure, yeah. So, for everyone listening, I am a high school teacher on the south side of Chicago. I teach at an all-boys Catholic school called Mount Carmel High School. I'm an English teacher there. I teach the American literature for our juniors, and then for our seniors, I teach AP literature. My athletic director and my principal, they like to call me the guy that wears all the hats. So I do a bunch of different things. I'm our varsity men's volleyball coach. I am our student activities director. So I handle all the clubs. I run all the school dances. I'm our student council moderator. And as of about 2 days ago, I will be Mount Carmel's first sailing instructor. We are getting a club sailing team, which a lot of donors have graciously gave money for us to have lessons at the Jackson Park Yacht Club. So I will be moderating that as well, which is for me so entertaining because I've never gotten to use the skills that I've learned here in a different context.
Yeah.
So I do all that. I'm in the school year. I'm pretty much as busy as I am in the summertime.
Yeah,
it's just a different type of work.
And you have a girlfriend.
And I am dating someone. Yes.
Can I just pause you there?
Sure.
Because I'm obviously used to being. Oh, cheers.
Cheers.
I'm used to being sort of on my own, right? Lovely. I got a boat, and that's a lot of work and all that sort of stuff. But I like to try and do as much and be as productive as I can be. But this summer, I've been in like full on relationship and trying to balance everything out is really hard.
Yeah. I think for a couple things for me, it's first dependent on the person that you're with. Sarah is an amazing woman, probably one of, if not the most kind and forthcoming and gentle souls that I've ever met in my life. She cares for me more than any other person that I have ever been around. So dating her is a very different experience just because of how much she kind of empowers me. Would I still do the same things if I was or wasn't dating her? Yeah, probably. But she fills the other kind of half of why I kind of live for human interaction so much that I could have ever imagined. And for her, she understands that doing these things makes me happy. So for her, I wouldn't say allows me to do these things, but she understands kind of how my brain works and what I do. So balancing that, and she understands how much school and how my school community really matters to me. Mm-hmm. So I'm there at school a lot. So she understands that these are kind of some of the things that makes my brain tick. So,
Is she able to join you for a lot of that stuff?
Yeah, so she does. At least the first 2 or 3 years that we were dating, we would take a trip to a national park every year. So we went to Rainier together. We did like a 2-week driving tour in 2020 during COVID. We went to Acadia together. We hiked Yosemite together. We've done a lot of different trips together. I took her to her first national park. I think she had been to it's this national park in California. I forget what it's called, but she had been there when she was really young, but I took her kind of on her first like national park tour.
Oh, okay.
She kind of fell in love with it there.
Yeah.
So we've been on trips kind of all the time together.
Mm-hmm.
this has been the first summer that we kind of hadn't been on a trip together just because of our schedules didn't really match up. She went to San Diego. I went to the Tetons. We kind of just bumped around a lot of different places, but she knows what makes me happy, and she not necessarily like gives me the space to do those things, but she understands that those are the things that make me happy, and she just gives her grace to allow me to kind of do them. Balancing it in the school year, I think, is easier just because obviously I'm a lot closer to her.
Yeah.
And that time is occupied with her on the weekends. But she's an amazing woman. I love her to death for everything that she has given me and things that I can't explain. And I think that just understanding that that's the type of relationship that we have, there's no really need for like balancing that in terms of time, just because it just works. And we know that anytime we interact with each other, like the quality of time is always greater than the quantity of time. Like every single time I've been back in Chicago, I've spent that time with her.
Yeah.
Not just because like she's my girlfriend, but like I want to spend that time with her because she deserves it. And I think that the time spent with her in these last 4 years are some of the happiest moments I've ever been.
Wow.
So,
shout out
Sarah. Yeah,
hey.
for making me feel the way that I feel in this present moment.
Well, I feel like I'm treading water with one arm.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
I just I think it's, for me, it's one of those things, and just listening to you describe that as that's really good. That sort of, that's where I want to get.
Mm-hmm.
But going from a complete solitude sort of lifestyle to not, and to, be taking on all these different things, because I've always been pretty fascinated by people who are like ultra productive.
Sure.
Just, they're doing stuff all the time. They're not wasting time. They're doing stuff. And they, the only drawback I've ever found to that is that it makes time go by really fast.
Right.
And that's one of the things I've always liked about sailing, is that sometimes it feels like, a day can take a week out there.
Right.
Just time warp stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting trying to balance all of that stuff out with another person who I, absolutely adore and want to just be around and everything. But I'm so used to, like, I've got to do my thing, and I've got to do my thing alone, because that's how I've always done everything.
Right.
And trying to not so much balance it, I guess, but like share that space. Like, that was one thing Adrian had said to me, is like, can we just share space?
Exactly.
And I was like, I'd never heard that before.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, share space? What do you mean? And it just means being like in the same room.
Exactly.
And like, I'm doing, podcasts, or I'm trying to do something, and then, she's over there doing another thing, but we're still in the shared space.
Yeah. And it's all about, because when Sarah would come over on the weekends and I'm slaving over reading essays and doing all those things I have to do to get ready for the next day, and just saying to her like, hey, I'm sorry, like I have to do this, and she's just like, okay, well, I'll just sit here, like, I'm fine. But just like being in the same presence with that someone, and relationships inherently is just finding someone that you think is worthy of your time, worthy of you giving up your moments of where you could be doing anything, but you want to do it with that person in that context.
And it's better.
It's better when that happens.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it's about finding that person that you believe makes the time where you could have been spending alone, but it's better with them.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm discovering.
Yeah. For me, I have not only thought that I had found that in the first couple of months of what we were dating, but it's been fully solidified in the last year. Or so of just being in the same area, and just understanding that there's always going to be someone in your corner, no matter what happens. And and defending all of the decisions that you make, even if they may be right or wrong. Just always having your back in terms of a philosophical switch, not even in just terms of like, oh yeah, you're totally right, not in just being like a yes person, but understanding how you feel as a person in different contexts, and then channeling what they think that is best for you in that moment, and finding someone who can equitably do that, I think is very, very powerful. And it just kind of like, I wasn't necessarily looking for it when we started dating, but I think that was like half of the best part, is it just kind of like,
it just happened.
It just happened,
and comes out of the blue.
And those are some of the memories that I hold close to my heart, is just thinking about how it just kind of came to be, and just how it kind of built, and how strong our relationship has grown in the past 4 years or so.
You're a true Renaissance man.
Yeah, I guess so.
It really is.
I don't think about it like that, but I don't think I've done anything special.
Well, no, you're just, it just in reference to being able to do all these different things. Like you said, you're a man who wears many hats, and that takes a huge amount of commitment, takes a huge amount of energy, and I guess that's a perfect lead into. Takes a lot of juicing.
Heck yeah.
To get there. And when I say the term juicing, I mean, it really, well, I guess here's a good question. How did you first find, where did you first come across juice?
So at camp in 2014, maybe it was I forget what year it is, but they being Jack Stearns and
no last names.
Oh, sorry, Jack. And Jack Stearns. Yeah, Jack S. And it was probably 2015 I first heard of it. Jack and Nick P. They
shout out Bitter and Yacht Club.
Exactly. Yeah. They gave a presentation on juicing, and it was like it was very funny. It was very upbeat. And it was very different from all of the meetings and the programming that we have done during staff week.
Yeah.
But the thing that shook me to my core, but really, really stuck with me, was that not only can anybody do it, but that is why you live as a human being. We read this book in my class called Into the Wild by John Krakauer.
Love it.
And it's about Chris McCandless, how he is this very comes from a very affluent family. He graduates from Emory. He's doing all these things. Then he just packs up, moves to Alaska, spends as much time as he can out there, and then dies of starvation of eating these kind of poisonous roots. But he writes in his book at the end, happiness is only real when shared. And I think what really stuck with me is that I'm doing this job at camp for the happiness of other people. Mm-hmm. And if I can do that, that's what makes me the most happy. And they led into like juicing is all about just like making someone's day, however small or large it may be. And I think that once I understood that is the job of a Camp Michigania staffer, mm-hmm. if I could do that good here and juice here, I can do it anywhere. And from that summer in 2016, I just kind of ran with it after that. After 2015, going into 2016, I ran with it.
Yeah.
And it's become kind of like a personal philosophy of mine. I even use like in the classroom or with parent-teacher conferences. And I think that it's so easily powerful of like just how it's described and how it can be used in any sort of context.
Yeah. Well, and I working here. When I first got here, I was 21 years old. I did not know how to interact with people a little older than me, or people that were in these nice 4-year colleges like the University of Michigan and stuff like that. And I felt completely outgunned. And then as the summer went on and I was able to watch how people interacted with our guests coming in, and not just proper like, hello, sir, da, 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 how are you doing? Exactly. It was more like, yucking it up and just sort of being like, hey, how we doing? And engaging with them and all that. And I learned that just by watching it, and then year after year after year practicing it, and then it's hard to pinpoint what exactly. I think it was just that it was a funny word to say. That's how it sort of started. It was just like, boy, that's juicy.
Yeah.
And then that turned into like, hey, let's juice that thing up. And that meant that thing could be better. We need to make it better. Let's juice it up.
Exactly.
And it did. I mean, like I said, when we did our presentation, or when you did yours and I gave that little intro. Sorry.
It was a wee effort.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate that. It sort of turned into a bit of a mantra. And it was something where, we took that went on for years, even down to the bitter end when I was working there. It was a lot of juicing and really, I mean, the emphasis of it, and this is all from like a customer service sort of perspective, but then, it sort of bled into life.
Yeah.
Every day, how you interact with not only just people, but everybody. I like, when we're doing like family stuff, you juice the family.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, I want to make sure you guys are having the funnest time, because if you're having the funnest time, I'm having the funnest time. And then we just keep going, and it's exponential. It just gets better and better, and you get the energy from the juice.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always come to find that juicing is all about being unapologetically yourself.
Yes.
Like that's the only way that in which it works. I'm not putting on a performance. I'm not putting on like a facade just to make someone's day. It's because my purpose here or just in life is to make the time I spend with you everlasting. It's to make the time that I spend with you so everlasting that you either in this context want to come back and see that person that you saw from last year, or see that person that comes up to you and goes, "Hey, do you like remember me from when I was like yay big, when I was like 3 feet tall?" It's like, "Oh yeah, of course." And that you're not doing those moments so you can just have people come up to you and say that, but you do those moments because you realize that juicing someone makes an impact on their life forever. It makes them into the person that like they thought that they wanted to be, and now here they are. And if they hold that situation or that memory so close and dear to their heart, it means that you're just doing a good job as just a human being.
Yeah.
It
supersedes the job,
exactly,
so to speak, and it really speaks more volumes of, like you said, being unapologetically yourself, because you're presenting yourself, but you're engaging with the person, whoever it is, in whatever facet of life it is, and really being right there with them and sharing sort of that moment, sharing that space, I guess, but intentionally doing so.
Exactly.
And knowing that you're doing it on purpose. You're not doing it to get followers. You're not doing it to get money. You're not doing it. I mean, in some ways you could lawyer it up and say, yeah, well, you're doing it to get this energy from this happiness that you get from doing this, and sort of, what's the best way to say it? You are sort of getting something out of it because it makes you happy to do it.
Right.
So there is that, I suppose, but like, yeah, it's hard to describe exactly.
And I think that's one of the best parts about it.
If
I'm being honest,
it's abstract, ambiguous. It's like the wind.
It is. No, it's very much like a aura that this place, that Michigan, kind of provides. It's very, for me, it's easy how juicing subverts any stress or any essence of kind of overposing reality in just terms of how you can make someone feel just by striking up a 5-minute conversation with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's a transaction, how you're talking about, there's a transactional action of, I'm wearing this shirt.
Yeah.
You have a lanyard on. I'm providing this service. But I can do the job by just doing the things that I'm instructed to do and put no juice into it. But is that going to make me fulfilled in terms of how I could have had that interaction? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I take that into account when I teach in high school. My job, I think, is to make a high school student's like your time in high school, it's my job to make these 4 years the best 4 years of your life up to this point. Because you only get 4 years. You're never going to get it back. And if I rob you of that happiness, that's on me. And that's horrible of me to do so. So it's my job to bring it every single day, give you my best self every single day, because this interaction that we have, you're never going to have again. I had it. I know what it feels like. But you may not have it ever again. So it's my job as a teacher to student relationship to make it the best that it can be. And even if it's just saying hello in the morning, or like making a sarcastic comment, right? That kind of like uplifts you, that makes you feel having
a little fun with
exactly, that makes you feel a part of the classroom. But understanding that we as human beings, happiness is only real when it's shared with other people. And if I can use that to my advantage and juice up every single situation, then it's my job to do it all the time. It's not my job to just do it when I feel like it. I owe it to myself and the people around me to do it all the time. So people always ask me in this job, it's like, how are you always on? Like, how do you have the energy to yell and walk around and scream and be so high energy? It's like, well, it doesn't make me tired because it's like a superpower. It's filling.
It's like a shield.
It fills my emotional capability or my emotional sentiments while I'm doing it. So yeah, at the end of the day, I may be physically tired, but mentally I'm like, let's do it again. That was so much fun. Let's do it again. And I think that if I can put myself into the juicing frame of mind every single time, not only does, for me, the situation be more fun, but all of kind of the levels of stress kind of melt away and nothing matters. All the anxieties, all of the previous perspectives I had of a situation or a person, that just kind of goes away. And now it's just my job is to make this interaction the best interaction that it can be. However I need to do it and however authentically I need to do it, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing, man. It's so beautiful.
It truly is. Well, and to be honest, one of the, because there's sort of there's the service aspect, like I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. I'm going to bring as much energy to this conversation or this service that I'm doing. But I'm also going to do it, like you said, in an honest way. I'm going to be myself, but there's also a goofiness to it. Yeah. And that actually came from, I don't know if you've ever seen, it's an early Bill Murray movie called Meatballs. Okay. And he's at a kids camp, in the Northwoods, and he's like the supervising counselor, and he's got all the counselors in training and all that stuff. And he just walks around like nothing's ever going to get him down. I mean, he's goofy, he's sarcastic. It's a great movie. I've always felt like we ought to watch it during staff meeting sort of thing. It just, the way he interacts with people is just with this very confident, sort of goofy personality. And he is the grandfather of juicing. Yeah. And you see, I don't know if you've ever seen any, there's all these crazy stories about like, Bill Murray showed up at this wedding and he just like got to know everybody. He was dancing with my grandma. and that's sort of the embodiment, I think, of that. The whole idea of juicing is that, you just bring yourself to a situation, no matter what it is, a job or just something, and you're there and you're going to be 100% committed to it, and you're going to try and uplift and bring this positivity and make that situation better.
Yeah, and kind of what you touched on, just going to a situation and just thinking, like, why not? Like, why aren't I just going to try to just juice this thing to its highest potential? And I think that comes from the fact as well of like, these interactions that you have with people here specifically are microcosms of how it exists in the real world, right? I mean, I don't go up to someone on the street of Chicago and say, "Hi, like, how are you?"
Yeah, well, there's a danger factor. There's a reality.
Yeah, but the fact that you can kind of practice that here, and just understanding that, this place allows you to kind of not take yourself too seriously. And I think juicing happens when you don't take yourself too seriously and understand that institutions will far live out people. Far. So understanding that I am not more important than the place that I am. Specifically here, there have been staffers since how God knows how much when 60s, whatever. But their stories live on under the umbrella of the institution. And I think that just understanding that I as an individual will be outlived by the boundaries and security that this place provides makes me want to do my job even more. It makes me want to juice even harder than I was when I was 21. And I think that if people can understand that's how it exists everywhere, that places outlive, that we are not more important. No individual is more important than the place we are in. All we can do to work towards that is just to try to just keep building the reputation of the place that we are in.
That place, yeah. You're adding to the lore.
Exactly. And if I can be a tiny notch or a tiny speck in the Michigania lore that someone remembers or that added to someone's want and continuation of juicing, then I'm a happy person. That's all I can ask for.
Well, I'd say you'd be much more than just a little mark, for
Well,
sure.
thank you. I appreciate that.
I would definitely say cheers to
Cheers,
that.
thank
I mean, it does. It takes a lot of energy to do it, but you do feed off the energy you get when you create that feeling and those interactions, and it's like magic. It really is. It's an unbelievable feeling, and when you get it, it carries with you. I mean, I can't tell you how many places I have walked into where I'm about to speak to a group of 150 people. I don't know a single one of them. They're paying me to be there. I've got to sort of bring it. And, standing outside of the front door of the place, about to walk in, and easily could just sort of sheepishly go in and let like fears and anxiety or whatever sort of overcome. And I just sort of think back to like this place, and I think back to that mantra, and I'm just like, and you just pop that door right open, you walk in, and you just, hey everybody, how we doing?
Exactly.
And instantly, it's just that confidence, and that it's like a shield. It's just like a badge. I've always said, you get a staff shirt, you throw that on, that's your badge.
Yeah,
you
it's
can
different.
Use that. You are behind that. That thing is in front of you to protect you.
Right.
And one of the when I try to encourage fellow staff, new staff to sort of take on that mind frame, it's hard to watch. Sometimes it's painful to watch somebody that is super cool, super interesting. They're fun people because you've gotten to know them, working with them for a couple of weeks or whatever. But they don't have that juice. They don't have that confidence to just throw that right at any person they interact with.
Right.
And you're sort of, I find myself introducing them, trying to bring the spark so that they just see it. Because usually they see it once and they're like, holy cow.
Exactly.
Like, I don't have to be a robot. I actually can just be myself.
Right.
And just chat. And when you do see it happen, I mean, it's amazing. I think it is hard, though. And it might be harder than when this whole thing was developed, back pre-social media and stuff, because there is that, not to get into that conversation at all, but like there is, I think there's a little bit of a false facade that people feel like they almost have to put out into the world these days.
Right. And I think that also comes from the fact that that people think that they can't juice other people or they don't have the ability to do that. I think that you hit it right on the head where like you have to practice juicing. Like it doesn't just come naturally.
No, definitely not.
To someone. And I think that that's one of the things that I took into account, just seeing these older staffers come before me and I'm like, how are they talking to that person like that? How does that just come so easy? It's like, oh, well, they've obviously that they have somewhat of a more outgoing personality, but they've also done it so many more times than I have.
Yeah.
And it's just like now, okay, I have to just put myself more into those situations where then I can get comfortable in that, and then it just becomes second nature. I can walk up to a table at the dining hall and just talk to people just because I've practiced it for the last 9 years, right? It just comes second nature to me. It
I know
doesn't
the
even
first
feel
like 2 sentences that I'm going to say, they'll just come out of my mouth.
Exactly.
I don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, and I think that people should understand that juicing is not. It's not something that you're inherently just born with. No one is inherently born with just the ability to talk to people.
I'm sure Bill Murray probably had some awkward years.
Yeah, and but the real effort is being able to put yourself in enough of those situations where you have the opportunity to do that, have some misses, have some makes, and then find that fine line of what of what people in general want to do with their own juicing. I think that's the beauty of it is that it's this super concrete but abstract thing at the same time. Yeah, it's about making someone's day, but like you do with that of what you will.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
It's been offered to you if you don't want to take. Because some people are just going to stonewall it, and it doesn't matter. Like I think also one of the factors that may be hard to get over for someone coming into it would be fear of being embarrassed. And I used to say it was a good idea to try and embarrass yourself like at least once a day.
Sure.
Because it's good just to get that, to almost build a tolerance up to it, to numb yourself to it. I still remember the one time in my life I think I was more embarrassed than any other time. And I used that as like a motivating force in my life for years to come. This was back before here and before I got into any customer service, before I was outgoing, when I was a shy person. I had walked into the wrong classroom in community college, packed full of people. I had sat down, and I definitely think the professor knew that I was not in that class. It was pretty early on. It was like in the first 2 weeks of the semester. And, I'm just an idiot. I was a terrible student, whatever. But I sit down, and I knew that he must have known, and I'm sure some of those other students knew. But they just let me sit there. And they let me sit there for 15 minutes before I realized that I was in the wrong room, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I was so embarrassed. I was like, shoot, I should just get up and walk away. And then the professor sat and called me out. And he kind of did it in a pretty mean way. And literally the entire classroom, 50 people, erupted in laughter, laughed me out of the class. I got down the stairwell into the hallway. I could still hear them cackling when I left the building. And I was just like, oh my God. And I felt absolutely awful for at least a week after that. But then something clicked over in my brain, and I was like, I think that was like probably the worst it would ever be.
Sure.
As far as just sheer public embarrassment. And you know what? I'm still here. I'm still walking around. I have not seen any of those people. I mean, I'm not getting laughed at every time I walk in anywhere. I don't know. I think it was the worst one, but then I realized that, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
So whatever. And yeah, I mean, I sometimes the joke you say isn't going to drop. Sometimes you're going to say the wrong name. Sometimes you're not going to always get it right.
Exactly.
But hey, you get over it. You have a chuckle. Boom, you move on.
Exactly.
You put it right in the past. You don't even think of it. But oh man, God, I still, when I think about that right now, my pulse is racing. And that was 20-something years
Cold
ago.
bead of sweat.
God Almighty. Well, hey, can you just break down? Because you had taken juicing to a different sort of level as far as describing it.
Sure.
What was what was that called? Where is it an acronym?
Yeah. So in wanting to make this presentation, I guess more, I don't know if accessible is the right word, but just putting it in a sphere where it wasn't just so like
Like, hey man, all you gotta do
is just talk to someone, just say hello. Like that's it. You just gotta put yourself out there.
That's what I did during our presentation.
Like I wanted to give it more of like okay, like this is how you can do this here. So I guess like it started with a definition, or I guess but before that it started with a question of like, why are we here? What is a staffer's purpose at this job? Why are you here? Why do you think that you applied to this position?
Yeah.
So once we talk about that, we kind of circle around the fact that it's to make the campers week the best week of their summer. That's kind of the slogan that a lot of staffers have. So then you go into the definition of like the camper engagement side of it. So the acronym is the J in juicing is just say hello or yes, right? That kind of 2 sentences that you talked about starts with, hey guys, how's it going?
Simple as that.
Exactly, which then allows you to get yourself into a context of what's going on there. So then the U in that is obviously the boundaries and the parameters of what you're consensually willing to do. So the U is unless it's unsafe, unrealistic, or unconsensual, or I have a picture of one of my good friends, Jeff. It says, or this man says it's a good idea.
He does look scary.
Yeah. The I is I know everything, meaning that the person I'm interacting with, the sphere of knowledge that they have is based upon the sphere of knowledge that I have. So in my interaction with them, I can juice them in any way that I want to because I have all the knowledge. I have everything at my disposal to make their day. The C in it for juice is careful ultimatums or careful precedents. So if I juice someone, for example, I let a 6-year-old shoot during adult time at archery. Mm-hmm. I have to be wary of, are all the 6-year-olds going to come down and shoot archery at the same time? So I have to be willing to either accept that, I wouldn't really call it a consequence, but the psychologists in the room may call it a consequence. I have to be able to deal with that.
The repercussions.
Exactly. And the E is everyone can juice someone. And I think that's what I hold dear to my heart is everyone has that kind of like unlocked or that locked or unlocked ability to really make someone's day in their way that they see possible. And then I have like common juicing sayings. So like, where's I juiced those 5-6s so hard on the pontoon boat by talking to Puff. Like I went in the water, I talked to Puff. It was cold, it was rainy, but they wanted to have Puff talk to them, so I went in the water and I talked to Puff.
They needed the uplift.
Because
you're not the only one that's cold and it's raining.
Exactly.
Think of it that way.
There's another one that I have where I gave someone a huge Petoskey stone on the stone safari, super juiced them, right? Yeah, I could take this really cool Petoskey stone and I could keep it, but like it would be so much more cooler to me if I gave it to somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of cool portion of it. And like the top juicing moments have always started for me with just learning someone's name and saying hello to them. The power of a name
is ridiculous.
It's like another superpower in terms of how much understanding just someone's identity of how they call themselves, how much that impacts them. Even if they believe that, oh, this person didn't know my name, just starting with that, if with a person that is you're not exactly comfortable with, just breaks that anxiety down, just kind of in a heartbeat, just by saying, "Hey Jim, how's it going?" Oh my gosh, this person knows my name. I told them my name one time, and now they know my name. That's crazy. So just understanding that this kind of, I don't know if I would call it a life philosophy. Maybe it's a life philosophy for you and I. But just this instance, it kind of like rose up from just wanting to be more than the person that I am and wanting to kind of spread that and give pieces of myself or give pieces to other people that then they could hold on to and then they can do whatever they want with those. And I think that if people can work towards that, however much progress you may make, I always say, and I've said it maybe a couple times on the podcast, juicing is a beautiful thing. It's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to see when it happens. It's beautiful to see the smile on either person's face when it happens. It's just a very heartwarming moment of why people exist in the first place. And I'm smiling just thinking about it.
Yeah, I am too. It makes me think about, just the upcoming final weeks and stuff. I mean, I was definitely midday today. Just this was probably one of the tougher days I've had all summer, and it was just essentially because I've been putting just so much work into this one project, and the project got stopped today.
Yeah,
just deadpan stopped, and I'm not going to be able to complete the goal. And it's just it broke me a little bit, And there were other things going on as well outside of the job and everything, but like it was just one of those. It's like, ah. And now that we've done this podcast, I'm already feeling the juice flow through the veins.
It's tingling.
It's like I'm ready to, tomorrow we got a day off. I'm ready to go try and do some fun stuff. And just move forward and get past it, and I think that's one of the nice parts about it, is that you can just choose to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You just can choose to do it. Like no matter how down you are, no matter how bad the circumstances are, you can just be like, you know what?
It's always an option.
It's always an option. It's there, and it's that's the nice part is it's reliable because it's up to you to just say yes. It's time to juice this up. It's trying to, and it all just came from just. Like, let's make that thing better.
Yeah, right.
And that just developed into let's make situations in life and our day and our time better. Brooks, let's go juice it up tonight and go have some fun.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for sitting down and sharing this time with me, man.
And
I appreciate it.
I want to thank you as a person who, like, I had my first interaction with you maybe almost 10 years ago, and in this kind of culminating moment that we're having right now, it really warms my heart just understanding that, like, you and I could even have this conversation. So I very much appreciate you having me on and just being able to talk about this thing that you hold so close to your heart, and now that I've kind of carried the mantle up until this point.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough.
Hey, my pleasure, man. I tip my hat to you. You're definitely an inspiration. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, people who try to do a lot of stuff and really utilize the time and explore and adventure and see all these things, they have a way of being infectious and keeping sort of, like you say, the mantle going, and it really, like, it's nice to sit and talk with you and just have these one-on-one conversations like this. You get to know new things about the person, you get closer to them and everything, and that's special. It's great, man.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, brother. Yep, I appreciate it.
Thank you.